Hi everybody, this is Janani.
Siddharth,
We have our plate full of food.
which came from this massive Dabba.
We have family visiting, so our food is now 5 meals instead of 2, and so we have a giant dabba.
Yes.
We have, I think, a Kerala inspired meal today.
Oh,
Which
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a rainy day. So we have banana and guava and raisins for our fruits. We have a cucumber and radish salad with, I think, like a nice creamy dressing.
And then a pineapple goju.
Yeah, I don't know what they call it in Kerala.
That's a good point.
Pachadi, I think it's called pachadi in Kerala.
Okay.
So we have a pineapple and capsicum sweet sour relish thing. Nice boiled rice and some dal.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the meal.
Yeah. And that actually is our topic for today. We decided we were planning some very serious things. And then we looked out and it was raining and decided to talk about the rain. It's raining in Bangalore and it's been cloudy since yesterday because there's a big cyclone that's hitting the Tamil Nadu coast. So recognizing that today is about rain. So I spent a good deal of my childhood in the Middle East. My parents were working in Muscat and Dubai. And when I was 10, we moved back to Bangalore to stay with my grandparents. And having lived in a desert all of my childhood, the rain was something magical. Because there, like if it rained once, twice a year, there wasn't the monsoon. And I remember when I was playing around with my cousins, I learned to recognize the huge winds that would come before the rain would come. We'd look up and see the coconut trees like leaning down aside and feel the smell of the rain coming. And I remember the energy of that moment, right? As little kids running around, I feel like we'd see the swaying of the trees, feel the wind, and catch some of that energy, and then be running wildly around until a parent or grandparent would like shout from the house and say, "Come in, it's raining." I mean, I wasn't the type who'd get like completely soaked. She certainly is. But just remembering like the energy and magic of those moments, and still for me, like I always smile when there's rain coming.
Yeah, your story actually reminds me of two different instances. I was initially going to say, tell people a story of hailstorms and how we first discovered them when I was around 5 or 6 years old. But your gusting story reminded me of another time. I was about 9 or 10. I was pretty big for my age. I looked very much the size of an adult. And we had...
Like you do now.
Okay, fine. And we had a nanny who was coming to take care of us. We were living rather outside the city at that point. And we had just stepped out on a nice long walk and play time. I had my cousins over, cousins who were younger than me. And so it was Aditi, my younger sister, myself, my kuti cousin who was must have been 4 or 5 at that time, Janani, who's now not anymore kuti. And we were walking back and those gusts of wind started. It was sudden, there was stillness and then suddenly a giant wind. Janani was wearing a little frilly frock at this time. And my nanny and I were holding one of her hands each. One gust of wind actually picked her up and she was flying for a few seconds. We decided at that point to come back in. But the hailstorm story was a very different kind of energy. It wasn't this kind of big, vast, giant wind energy. It was concentrated little rocks in your hand which melt away energy. And we had about 6 or 7 of us kids watching from the balcony of our friend's house, and we'd wait until we could identify a hailstorm on the a hailstone on the balcony, run out, pick it up, and come back in. And you quickly giggle over it for a few seconds until it melts off. I know hailstorms can be a lot more dangerous than that, but that was a moment of great curiosity for us. And the interesting part was we discovered hailstorm in a house that used to flood. That house got flooded, I think, 3 or 4 times over the 9 or 10 months that we lived there before we moved out. And flooded in the sense, we used to sleep on the ground, all of us. So Amma and the party would wake us up in the middle of the night, and we'd realize that our bedding was wet. We'd have to go sit on the dining table and the sofas and all of that, pick up everything. And the adults would, again, I was around 5 or 6 at this point, so the adults would be bucketing bucketing water out of the house. And it wasn't like clean water, right? The water would have come in through the commodes and the drainages outside. We had a giant bandicoot was swimming around in the house in the water.
Wow.
It was a rather exciting midnight adventure each time that happened.
I imagine it would have been scary in the night as well.
Not for us kids. I think the adults were just chilled out about, or at least the impression that I have, the memory that I have, was that it was a grand adventure. It must have been very tiring for the adults.
Yeah, I haven't had that experience because my grandparents' house is located on higher ground, and so we haven't flooded. But I have, I've noticed that like just so much of who lives where in a city and the socio-economic organization of a city is based on the slope and who's going to get flooded when it rains. I'm just thinking about that as Chennai, Tamil Nadu is facing another cyclone, recognizing who's going, poorer people are going to get flooded more because of the way land value goes around. But it also reminded me your story of like midnight realizing that the things are very different. It reminded me of a different rain situation that I encountered when I was living in St. Paul in Minnesota. When there were big blizzards and like these massive snowstorms coming through in winter, to wake up one morning and not be able to see out the window because just everything had gotten covered in snow overnight. The good back exercise you get from shoveling. I think the highest I've been in was like 4 feet of snow.
It's pretty high.
And just shoveling our way out of 4 feet of snow because a bunch of us pooled together and shared rent in a single house. And then in the middle, all the squirrels that would come and take refuge in the loft, where we had to make sure that all the bags we put in there were well sealed because we know every winter there are going to be squirrels coming in.
I remember hearing them also in the house. You could hear them sort of rattling around up there.
And if you can't hear them, you can hear my upstairs roommate banging the roof with a broom to chase them off.
Poor guys.
Yeah. So snow and snowstorms were a whole other thing. And from the viewpoint of an ultra cold winter, I remember there I did not like the rain because snow is so much cleaner. It falls on you, you can flake it off. But rain, like, you need to be wearing something that is waterproof or you're going to get wet and you're going to get wet and cold. which was a new experience because, well, at least back then, like it was only the warm monsoon rains that I was really used to in large amounts. There is the cold monsoon rains in cold winter rains. That's a bit in Bangalore, but that's increased now with cyclones, I guess. So, yeah, snow, a whole other, like it's just a whole other thing. And I also remember, well, okay, going to go into one more snow story. In my last year, I had an office space or I had a cubicle at the Institute for Advanced Studies at the University of Minnesota, which is located in the big auditorium. So it's a building with huge windows and huge staircases, etc. So one Sunday I was in to do some work, and the working space has a key card access. So I was inside, I was working, I wanted to go to the bathroom, which was outside. I went out, I went to the bathroom, I came back and realized that I left my key card at my desk. And it was Sunday, in the middle of winter, and it was snowing. My boots, my coat, all were inside at my desk.
What did you do?
So I called up like the university helpline and said, "Hey, I'm locked out. What can you do about this?" They're like, "Okay, we'll contact the relevant person at the institute they need to verify that you're the right person. Then we'll send someone to open the door." I think that whole process took like 2 hours to happen. But I spent that time, there was a giant window, like big auditorium building, fancy, right? And I climbed up to the ledge of the window and was just standing and staring outside at the snowflakes, dancing around, and how different gusts of wind would carry them. And it was just so amazing and peaceful. And I know I was nice and happy and warm inside this fancy building, and therefore the snow was magical. But having no electronics on me, and just sitting and watching the snow was fun.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a story in response, but it's better in writing than told on video, because I've written it down from that moment.
So you want to drop the link to it?
Or I'll put it down in the description. I'll copy paste it down in the description.
Yeah, that is a fun story.
What is your stories of rain? What
Or snow.
are your stories of rain or snow or water or anything else you'd like to tell us?
Yeah.
We are curious to hear. Do subscribe if you're interested in hearing more fun stories. Or if you would like to tell us what you'd like to hear about next from us, we're happy for suggestions.
Send it in the comments. Email us at dabbastories@gmail.com.
We tell Dabba stories at
We tell dabbastories@gmail.com. And thank you for listening.